what's been going on over the last year in Public Works, and we've got a bit of a presentation here. Board chair told me 5 minutes, so I'm going to hang on tight, buckle in, we're going to go. But there we go. So we'll have 6 pillars that we work from, of course, with the most important being aligning with the board priorities, and we'll discuss a bit our strategic goals, performance metrics, our accomplishments, collaborations, and then we'll look ahead a bit as we move forward into 2023. So for those that aren't as familiar with Public Works, we've been operating as departments since the 1960s. We stepped into solid waste management in the late 60s at the direction of the then Board of Supervisors in a time when the management of municipal solid waste was going through the throes of no regulation in the beginning to step into regulation, but there was a real absence of proper and well-engineered disposal options for waste at that time. Fast forwarding today, the DPW manages a number of facilities. We have our waste energy facility located on Market. We have our recycling and education center that's on Wealthy Street. South Kent landfill located in Byron Township. We have our North Kent transfer station located up in Plainfield. We have several recycling drop-off centers, one at the recycling center, one at North Kent. We also conduct landfill monitoring and treatment for several closed landfills that we took over in the 1960s and 70s. And we also operate several service centers. We have Safe Chem facilities located throughout the county. We also provide for safe meds, safe sharps, and our swap shop for reusable material. How we organize ourselves around that is we have our administration, finance, and communications team. We have our administrative offices located on Wealthy. We have solid waste operations, which includes the recycling center, the North Kent transfer station, and the South Kent landfill. We have, of course, our recycling and resource recovery, our waste energy facility, environmental compliance, safety, our closed remediation and landfill remediation team, and we operate with a $51 million annual operating budget. Several goals that we have in front of us that we've been aspiring to is one is achieving 90% reduction in landfilling by the year 2030. We've been operating landfill operations since the 70s, and as we move forward in a more circular economy and sustainable materials management, we're seeing a lot of value in the material that we're throwing away, and we're looking to redirect that back into the economy. Another pillar for us is developing public-private relationships to make that happen. So we're looking to attract investment in sustainable materials management using our public policy, our public leveraging to bring in the best and the brightest and the best technologies and companies throughout the country and throughout the world here to West Michigan. And then we're also looking to meet and are meeting the state standard for testing and treatment of PFAS. PFAS impacts our landfill leachate because everything that contains PFAS, whether it's the fabric on your clothing, a wrapper of fast food, or a Teflon pan or anything like that that may have used a PFAS chemical in it, sooner or later goes to landfill or waste to energy for disposal, and so we receive that material. So presently at our North Kent landfill, we installed a PFAS pretreatment facility for leachate to bring the PFAS levels down below the regulatory limit prior to discharge to the North Kent Sewer Authority. We've done the same thing at the waste energy facility. We completed that facility this year prior to discharge to the Grand Rapids wastewater treatment facility. And moving forward and looking forward, we'll likely be installing a similar system at the South Kent landfill and perhaps at the old Kentwood landfill for the leachate there. Several metrics, and there's many that we could look to, but I wanted to share 3 this morning. One is the number of pounds of chemicals that we're taking in. We've been operating a household hazardous waste, or we rebranded it a few years ago as Safe Chem, for many years here in Kent County, and that's to ensure that residents have the opportunity to take things in like mineral spirits, old gasoline, pesticides, cleaners, things around the house that shouldn't go into the trash, shouldn't be dumped on the ground or placed in the sewers. And we're pleased that we're continuing to have significant impact. And in 2021, we had a little over 300,000 pounds of material come in through the 5 different collection points here in Kent County. Another metric is the number of tons of recycling that we receive and process at the Recycling and Education Center. 2021, almost 34,000 tons came into that facility. We've been in the business of processing recyclables here in Kent County since 1990, and our facility on Wealthy Street now is our second facility that we've been operating. We're always looking to bring more material in there, and trying to encourage residents and businesses and the waste haulers to improve their recycling programs at the curb or drop-off programs to help bring that material in for processing. And then the last metric I'll share, although seemingly mundane, is the number of megawatt hours of electricity that we generate and sell at the waste energy facility. We generate roughly about 100,000 megawatt hours of electricity annually at the waste energy facility. It's significant for 2 reasons. One is we're taking refuse or municipal solid waste, and we're using that in a combustion process to generate steam, and with that steam we're able to turn a turbine and generate electricity that we move to the grid here in the greater Grand Rapids area. We produce about the same amount of electricity that all the residences in the city of Walker use on an annual basis. That gives you some sense of the magnitude. But the other important thing about this metric is the amount of revenue that we generate to help offset the operational cost. We earn about $82 a megawatt hour, so this is roughly $8 to $8.2 million annually that we generate in revenue that helps offset the cost of the operation, which is normally about 40% of the revenue that we need to generate and operate the waste energy facility. The reason I also bring this up is our facility is in its 32nd year of operation. It was commissioned and opened in 1990. And any facility of that age, as any other power plant, has to go through refurbishment to ensure that it's going to continue to operate. And we usually operate at about a 92% availability rate, which is relatively common for a facility of this age. So the reinvestment and the reinvestment in the waste energy facility and refurbishment there continue to ensure that we can both process the material and generate the electricity and move that to the market. Significant accomplishments, we were able to complete the construction of our new administrative offices and Safe Chem facility on Wealthy. Thank you to Commissioner Hennessy. She was instrumental in working with us and working with the neighborhood there to ensure that we landed well and that we fit well with the community, and we're so thankful for that. We were able to add a safety manager to our team. Most don't realize how dangerous the solid waste industry is. We rank 6th nationally in the number of deaths in our industry, and we're eclipsed only by oil rig operations and logging, to give you some sense of the danger around moving equipment, vehicles, everything that occurs in our industry on a daily basis. So we made the investment last year, and thanks to our Board of Public Works for approving a new safety manager. Sole role is to ensure that whether we're at the recycling center, which is more of a manufacturing plant, our waste energy facility, which is a power plant, or our landfill and our other operations, that they remain safe and that our employees are protected and have every amount of training and other things that they need to ensure that they go home safe at the end of the day. We were also able, with the Board of Public Works approval, to enter into a project development agreement with Energy and Continuing Materials, and they're the anchor tenant that's being proposed for the Sustainable Business Park. We procured a new waste energy operator, so for operations and maintenance. The existing operator has been in place for 32 years. They notified us a year ago of their intent not to continue that working relationship. So over the last year and a half, with purchasing and others, we procured Vicinity Energy, who is operating the downtown heating and cooling district alongside our operations and We completed strategic planning in June, thanks to Administrator Vandenberg. He spent an afternoon with our department and with our leadership and gave us the opportunity to think through on a little larger basis as to the direction of our department, and gave us some perspective that has proven very helpful, which also led then to a department reorganization. Other accomplishments is we're sorting more and more scrap metal out of the North Kent transfer station loads. We receive about 107,000 tons of waste there annually, and we're with the correct material handling equipment, we're pulling more and more scrap metal out of that. We completed a multifamily residence recycling pilot. Although we were successful with the pilot, it was frustrating to learn a lot of the reasons why multifamily recycling doesn't work well, and I'm happy to share that. That's a little bit longer conversation, but share more of that information later. We completed a waste characterization of Kent County trash, which sounds super exciting until you put on your hard hat and all your gloves and safety vest and start pulling trash out of trash bags and weighing it and measuring it and determining what's in it. But what's helpful is it reaffirmed the fact that there's a lot of value in the material that we throw away every day. We just figure out how to sort it out and then how to move that back into a value stream. We're able to maintain our tipping rate going into 2023. There'll be no changes, especially in this time of uncertainty, recession, of course, inflation and other impacts. We're able to maintain a levelized tip fee. And we were able to open our new administrative building with Kent County Road Commission getting ready to make its move out to Alpine. We were excited to be able to relocate next to our current operation at the Recycling and Education Center. We also were successful with 5 grant applications over the last 2 years, totaling $1.3 million. It's important because we're focusing a lot on our infrastructure, particularly at the Recycling and Education Center, where that facility is already 12 years old. It opened in 2010. And a facility of that nature wears out in about 10 years, and we've been refurbishing right along. But the other challenge we have is that we have not been fully staffed at the recycling center in the last, I think, 3 or 4 years. We're operating below our optimal staffing levels. We've had a real difficulty bringing the right number of people in on the process line. So part of our infrastructure redevelopment and reinvestment there is to bring more technology into place to ensure that we can continue to process the tons that are coming in, but at the same time do it with fewer people. A couple of collaborations. We were excited that the City of Rockford and their Sustainable Committee worked with us on the SORT program. You may have seen this at the Gerald R. Ford International Airport in the last couple of years. This is really a duplication of that effort. What we've learned is that there's a lot of confusion around recycling when there's inconsistent messaging. So using the SORT program, which was developed alongside with the City of Grand Rapids, we're continuing to deploy this in public space recycling so that when people attempt to recycle in a public space, that it looks the same wherever they're at. Now, this is only the second or third in this effort, but it's helpful to have the City of Rockford and the airport as examples of how we can come together, how we can collaborate. So whether you're stepping off the airplane or getting onto an airplane and you're recycling as you're leaving or coming, or if you're in a public space, either at a park or at a place where you're enjoying an evening out, that you can find a place to recycle if it's in a public space. Another collaboration, and we're thankful for these, not many people think about this, but we manage a lot of evidence and contraband and meds through safe med programs at our waste energy facility. We ensure that those materials are destroyed appropriately, that there's observed destruction, and that there's a chain of custody to ensure that the materials that were taken in through law enforcement actually go out for proper disposal. We work with law enforcement agencies from across Michigan, including the Michigan State Police, U.S. Treasury, Homeland Security, Department of or DEA, Sheriff, and many others. Another thing that we've done in the last couple of years is we had an extra facility that we had purchased out at the South Kent landfill expansion property. It was a house, and we were unable to sell and have it relocated. So in the last couple of years, we have really found that there's tactical teams that need to train and ensure that they're ready to go for our community. And this past year, the Michigan State Police, Kentwood Police Department, Wyoming Police Department, City of Grand Rapids Police Department, and the Sheriff's Department has used this facility for their tactical. Pleased to be able to continue to offer that and collaborate with law enforcement in that way. Another key collaboration, and thanks again to County Administrator Vanderburg, is that we've been able to sit down and collaborate and have really good conversations throughout this summer. I think it started in March, where we sat down, the representatives from the City of Kentwood, City of Grand Rapids, the Rockford, City of Rockford, along with the Grand Rapids Charter Township, the Right Place, the Chamber of Commerce, to have conversations about how we're managing municipal waste in Kent County and how we might better do it looking to the future. So we're looking to wrap up those meetings. I think we've got one more in December, and then we've got a few more scheduled starting in this early, I guess late winter, not early spring, but it'll be in January. But we're thankful that we've been able to come around the table, and I think the way Ale would suggest is that it's a common understanding and agreement on the facts around how we manage waste and what the best path forward would be on that. Looking ahead, we will be, and we're currently in a procurement stage here, adding robotic sortation at the Recycling Education Center. I did mention a few minutes ago, we have been understaffed at that facility for several years. It's putting a lot of pressure on the staff there and our ability to move material. And the technology has gotten to the point where sorting with the robotics, you can sort about 100 picks per minute with a robot. On your best day, the average person can handle about 40. And other than scheduled maintenance on these, they actually have artificial intelligence and learning, and so they get better over time in their sorting. We received a grant from the state of Michigan and the Recycling Partnership about a month ago, about $600,000, and we're working with right now, and we're going out to bid to bring in robotic sorting. So you'll see this type of equipment being installed probably in the next 6 or 7 months at the recycling center. Also looking ahead, we're in our second of 5 years of capital refurbishment at the waste energy facility. It's in its 32nd year. Like any other power plant, it has to go through refurbishment, and we're on pace and on schedule. We are challenged some with some of the things that you've seen in the news around supply chain and labor, but we're making good progress. There's lead times. For example, we'll be replacing the cranes, which is a picture of what you see here in the spring outage. I believe that'd be probably April or May of 2023. The lead time on that project is 18 months from beginning to end. So it gives you some sense that, for example, the cranes itself, you have to order those 1 year in advance of installation because the build time on that is a year. So there's a lot of planning that's going on behind the scenes that on the daily you probably don't see, but I want to assure you that to make. Also a look ahead, our Board of Public Works will be meeting later in December, and we're excited to be able to bring a new North Kent transfer station facility. That construction, pending approval by the board, will start in March or April of 23 and be ready about a year after that. Our North Kent transfer station handled a little over 67,000 transactions last year, and I think about 117,000 tons of trash went through. It's, I guess to put it not mildly, it's almost overwhelming any day that you're there, the number of trucks and the number of customers and transactions, and the facility's tired. It's smaller than it should be, and from a safety standpoint, we want to separate our commercial from our resident traffic. So we're excited to be able to offer this moving forward, and we hope to have this ready to go about a year from now. Also a look ahead, and this is one of these sobering statistics, which is what was driving a lot of the conversation about what do we do next, is the South Kent landfill opened in 1986, I believe. There's 7 million tons of trash buried there. We are constructing our last cell next year, meaning that by the time that cell is constructed and we fill that and then backfill the rest of the facility there, we will be ready to close in about 2029. So we only have a few years before that landfill is completely full. And again, that facility was first opened in 1986. Also, another look ahead is we're continuing to work on our 30% design for the mixed waste processing facility proposed at the South Kent Landfill's Sustainable Business Park. Energy and Continuous Materials continues to work with us. They're working on their end, on their 30% design to help inform what the facility will cost. And on our end, we're working with the road commissions, the drain commission, the regulatory authorities, the Door Township, to understand completely the cost and the engineering around water, sewer, roads, all the infrastructure, electric, gas. We've been in conversations with both Consumers Energy and DTE to understand what it will take to bring in natural gas and the electrical. That is a continuing process. We'll continue to move that forward. We hope to have a recommendation on next steps to our Board of Public Works probably in March or April, and following that it would go to the Board of Commissioners most likely by mid-year. I think with that my presentation is over. I'd be happy to take any.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dar. Before we get to questions, do you want to just, you have some really great staff members behind you. Do you want to just take a minute to introduce them and highlight what they do for the department?
For sure. So Dan Rose is our operations manager. He manages and runs the South Kent Landfill and Transfer Station. E. Faber is our communications manager. He's my handler. He keeps me out of trouble most days. She's our finance director. She quietly makes sure that I don't spend more money than I should. And we're at board meetings a lot, and they'll go, Dar, what's the answer? I go, well, it's this. And then they look to Kim and go, what's the real answer? And they say, so as long as Kim shakes her head yes, then we know that we're in good shape. And then Alicia is sitting next to Kim, and she's our office administrator. There's many more managers that aren't here this morning, but that gives you a sense of some of the team that's behind us and running the business day to day.
All right, thank you so much. Now, are there questions for Dar? Commissioner Hennessy.
I want to, I'm on. I'd like to thank you for your work with the neighborhood. Before your time, the recycling center was planned through the year 2007. And from the very beginning, this department has a good reputation within the neighborhood for at least addressing whatever questions or concerns they have and going right to that neighborhood, and that has been appreciated. We may not always like the answers, but we appreciate that you always answer and come directly to the people. That is very greatly appreciated.
You're welcome. If I could get the backup beepers turned off in the morning on a lot of the heavy trucks, I think that would make a lot of people happier, but we don't want to start operations too early to try to minimize. Once in a while we get a rogue truck running down the wrong street.
And you address that. You come right to the neighborhood association meeting and you say what you're going to do to make sure that that errant truck doesn't go down the neighborhood. I appreciate that.
All right, other questions for Dar? Comments? Yeah, I was going to say, you look like you're ready to ask a question. Commissioner Kallman.
That's not a very substantive question, but since nobody else is asking anything, so I think robots are pretty cool. So I'm just curious about the sorting robot. Is that something that sorts in advance and then further down the line, the humans step in and, pick out stuff that otherwise would be missed by the robot? Or are these robots so good that they can just run a whole line themselves?
So you'll see more QA, QC, or quality control. The robots actually are designed with the software. So there's actually mobile uplinks so that you can program and continue to improve on the artificial intelligence. But these robots will be picking plastic containers. If anyone's ever been at the recycling process line, kudos to the men and women that do that every day. Because I'd last about 3 minutes, because when you see all that material going by between vertigo and just how do you keep up with it? It's so hard, but the robotic sorters actually they use air to actually, and a suction cup to actually grab the container and pull it off the line and then drop it into the right bin. So it'll be a primary sorting, and we're looking to place 2 or 3 of those depending on what comes back. But you'll see, we never want to displace workers, but what we have learned is that our labor rates have increased 40% over the last year or so, and we simply cannot get the people to even want to work on the process line. So our goal is, when I became director, it took 30 people on the process line to process and sort all the material running down. And through automation and this last step of automation, we should be able to bring that down to 12. And 12 is manageable, 30 not so much. So there'll be primary sortation, to directly answer your question.
And with those robotic sorters, you can pinpoint like certain types of plastic for them to pick, correct? Okay. Commissioner McLeod.
Chair. Thank you, Dar, for this presentation. This was really good information. I had no idea that you all were doing, work with the law enforcement agencies and, that sort of drug take-back programs and that sort of thing. So that's really, really interesting. I am interested to know, and maybe it's an offline conversation, why the multifamily residence recycling pilot didn't work. But I'll reach out to you later on that. I thought it was interesting, the megawatts per hour information that you shared. So is there any capacity to increase that, or do our facilities limit us to that? Because it looks like there was the same in 2020 and 2021. Are we limited with the amount of energy that can be produced from that facility?
Currently we're limited by the fact that we generate the maximum amount of electricity that the 2 boilers will allow us to do, because we're generating steam to then turn the turbine. If we added a 3rd combustion line or a 3rd boiler and expanded the plant, that would either allow us to export steam or to generate additional electricity. We also have what's called parasitic load. So about 2 megawatts are used to run the plant. And anywhere we can put in energy efficient pumps and all the other things that are used to run that facility, anytime we can reduce our parasitic load, that allows us to move more generation to the grid. But we are maxed out at the plant, and now it's just a matter of optimizing what we do have.
Okay. Thank you for that. And then my last question was about the safety manager. So you indicated that I didn't realize that that this particular industry had, what did you say, was number 3 in workplace?
It's ranked 6th in the number of deaths nationally,
Okay.
the solid waste management industry.
And has our safety record been pretty good with this facility? And do you, I guess, what sorts of benefits do you see this position bringing to the safety, in terms of, if we didn't have a lot of safety concerns, what can they bring to make sure that we are
We had a
compliant?
position, Constance, she retired a little earlier this year after 25 years. A portion of her job was safety, but she was also, I don't want to use the word distracted, but stretched to cover a lot of other tasks as well. So by having a safety manager whose primary focus is to ensure that each facility is operating optimally around fork truck training, and for example, there's really no, when you run an excavator or a front end loader, there's not a lot of training that goes with it, even in the construction trades. It's mainly you learn by seat time. So what we've developed is a competency-based measure where we want to ensure that those that are operating those pieces of equipment, 1, have the experience, but because they've earned their way into that seat, but 2, to ensure that they meet a minimum level of competency. And that's critical because, for example, at the North Kent Transfer Station, I mentioned those 67,000 transactions. Mm-hmm. So that's 67,000 trucks and trailers and cars on an annual basis that are moving in and around our front end loaders. And occasionally there is a bump. We do once in a while have an incident. Sometimes it's our doing, but a lot of times it's the driver of the other vehicle. So it's those types of things. And if you think of it, we run a power plant, we run a landfill, We run a transfer station. We run a recycling facility, which is a manufacturing facility, all the equipment there. And then we have our Safe Chem program, so we're handling chemicals at 5 different locations throughout this county on a weekly basis. So when you think about all the different types of things that we do, everything from running skid steers to loaders to excavators to handling chemicals and, that's why it's so critical that we align ourselves and make sure that we have a safety manager who's tracking training, who's ensuring that when there is an incident, we're going through a risk review to make sure that we understand the root cause analysis of, was it someone not paying attention, or was there a piece of equipment that was damaged, or was something broken, or what actually was the cause of it, so that safety manager can dig in a little deeper other than check the box and say, yeah, we had an accident, and you move on to the next day.
That makes sense. Thank you for that. And I did have one last question. So, you indicated that the last cell, would be constructed in, 2023 at the South Kent landfill. So, with the 2029 closure imminent with the space availabilities, what capacity will the new facility, the mixed waste processing and, the other things that are in process, how will that kind of offset the limitations that this last cell, being filled, will pose?
So in total, Kent County residents, businesses, municipalities, we generate about 1 million tons of trash a year here throughout the county. This facility is designed to, this being the proposed mixed waste processing facility, is proposed to process 400,000 tons. Our waste energy facility handles about 190,000 tons. The balance of that material would either go to a newly built landfill owned and operated by Kent County, or we would work with and rely on the other landfill operators outside of Kent County. So we've got it covered either way, but we are trying to define a more sustainable path with the business park and with the mixed waste processing facility.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Skaggs.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, Dow. How are you?
Good morning, Commissioner.
So there's no members, I think, on this committee from the Great White North of Kent County. But I wonder if I'm sure they're watching on TV. I wonder if you can comment a little bit more about the North Kent Transfer Station and the advantages to spending this money to build a new one.
Yeah, so the proposed facility is about $16 million. It will double the size of the facility, but more importantly, it does 2 other things. One is it separates your commercial traffic from your residential traffic. It's not uncommon to see the shorts, t-shirt, flip-flop person jumping out of their car and unloading, whatever they've got in their trailer, with the commercial driver who has the hard hat and the safety vest and the steel-toe shoes. And right now, there's too much interaction between those 2 customers, so we will completely separate them with this new facility. You drive to a different location, and you also tip at a different point. The other thing that it does is it provides kind of 2 aspects. One is there's a larger tipping floor where when trash loads are coming in, I showed earlier in the presentation the pile of metal that we've pulled out of the loads coming into North Kent Transfer Station. Because of the intensity, the number of loads, we have a difficult time getting through it to sort out that material. This allows us to stage it on a much larger tipping floor to pull some of those low-hanging fruit items like corrugated cardboard and scrap metal out. The other thing is it allows us to segregate things like roofing materials, shingles. We met with and we're working with a company located in Nuago that appears to have a great path forward on recycling shingles and moving it into a road base and asphalt. And they're working with Eagle and they're going through all the permitting. But to be able to stage and move that material to a different truck to move it out of the facility is important. The other item I would mention is that we have a charm center, which is an area for hard to recycle materials. So it allows the resident who's, before they tip or throw away their stuff, they can stop by and the old gas grill, that scrap metal goes here and the mattress goes there and the tires can be placed here. So it gives opportunity for those materials to be pulled off the load before it actually gets to the tipping floor where it's going for disposal. So those are a number of different ways that I think it'll benefit Northern Kent County and the county overall.
And just overall, it's an example of the partnership that we have with the private haulers, yes?
Absolutely, because the majority of the customers at North Kent Transfer are all the private haulers operating in the northern Kent County area, which is both local independent and the more national firms that you're familiar with their name.
Great, thank you, Dar.
All right, any further questions? Thanks, Star. Thanks for your time here. You know, trash isn't the most glamorous thing, but, you know, taking care of it is something necessary.
We're as cool as the airport. I don't know what you're saying
Let
here.
me finish. So it helps make our county more glamorous, the way that you care for our community. So thanks for joining us today. All right, so a little bit of a housekeeping thing now that we do have quorum. Let's go back to the top, and before we have our treasurer up here, I'm gonna open the meeting, I guess, and public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak? All right, seeing none. Next, we have approval of the minutes. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Moved and supported. All right. Any questions or comments or changes to the minutes? All right, seeing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Great. Next item on the agenda comes to us from the treasurer's office. So we have our treasurer, Pete McGregor, here to join us, and a couple staff members too.
Good morning. From trash to treasury. Hopefully, I'll be brief, and so we can get to some questions and answers. But with me, I have my two deputies, Steve and Jennifer, here in the background. So if I struggle with an answer, I'm sure Steve has been here for probably 26 years, and Jennifer about 12. So they have a lot of knowledge back there that kind of keeps me on the straight and narrow. So thank you for your time. With this, I'm going to struggle a little bit with my arm, but I think I can get through the majority of this without wincing too much. So let's see. This is pretty much the same 5 different areas that we cover for the overview, the board priorities, strategic goals, metrics, significant accomplishments, and then a look ahead. The mission of my office is to collect the lodging taxes, delinquent real property taxes, and manage the county funds. So a lot of this is based on a couple state statutes, PA 123, which has to do with Property Tax Act, PA 20, which is the More Investment Act, which is the basis for our county investment policy, which is a policy that this board has adopted. The majority of what I do in this office, in this capacity, I would say probably north of 90% is all written in state statute. So everything we do is on the guidelines of what our legislature has put in place. Moving forward, there are 3 specific strategic goals. The Treasury Department tries to stick and hit these goals every year, and the first goal is to invest the funds entrusted in accordance to the investment policy that we have. A lot of that investment policy falls along the lines of that acronym that I talk about in my financial overview or investment overview, the SLI acronym, which is safety, liquidity, and yield. That's something that I won't review too much today, but it's in the annual investment report. Second goal is to collect all lodging taxes due to the county and follow up with audits that we do on those lodging taxes. And the third goal is to collect the delinquent real property taxes in accordance with the methods described in state statute. So this is the strategy where we want to focus more on prevention rather than actual foreclosure. So it's my goal to not foreclose on a property. It's my goal to collect real property taxes. So anything I can do to be preventive or prevent foreclosure is kind of my goal. So first metric, our objective is to preserve 100% of our investment policy. So simply put, not to lose money for the county, right? That's simple terms. And you can tell that from probably since day one, even my predecessor, we continue to be as strategic and safe as possible when it comes to the money that our citizens send us in property taxes. So if we stick to the PA 20 and our investment policy, we should always be on track to preserve that 100% of that investment principal. This is just kind of a snapshot from end of October to give you an idea where our investments are. And the reason I show you this is when we did our annual investment meeting, things were a little bit different. So if you see at the top where it has the CDs or certificates of deposit, we're at about 31.8%. And the rest is going to be 60% or close to 60% of more of a government security investments. This is a lot different than what you saw a year ago. A year ago, it was opposite. It was 60-40 towards CDs. CDs are the safest investment policy, but no one was giving any type of return on your investment. It was close to zero on everything. So we needed to make sure that it was in the safest place. Well, with what the feds have done over the past 6 months, we have been shifting. We've been moving in the direction of, as our investments are maturing, moving them into more government securities, and you can see that here. The difference is almost triple what we're getting from the CD rates. The CD rates are still close to 2% and below, 2% below, where the government securities are in between 4% and 5%. So as they mature, we're laddering that out over time. So this is something that I'll be able to show you as we get into our investment income. Things are going to get a little bit better, at least in the next year. And that's what this slide shows. Our objective here is to realize investment income for the general fund annually. And 2021 was not the best year. In fact, it was probably the lowest year we've had in a long time, just because our returns were so close to zero. So if you can remember that safety and liquidity is our number one objective, and yield is a distant third, that even though this is earned income, it can't be the most important part to that formula. But come 2022 numbers, it probably will be much closer to what we're receiving in 2020 when it comes to investment income. Our third key performance metric is to audit at least 25% of the eligible established hotels, motels annually. We have about 114 hotels, bed and breakfasts, short-term rentals, and we audit 93 of them, and there's a reason for that. But the hotel revenues, as you can tell, are back up to more like and we're building more hotels, and there's more rooms, so the future is actually looking fairly bright when it comes to this. In 2019, we probably brought in $11.3 million. Our low point was 2020 because of the pandemic. That was about $5.6 million. 2021, $8.5 million. And as of, I think, yesterday or last week, we were close to 2019, and we're at $11 million of revenue coming in on that. So, yeah, I'm sure there's going to be questions about that. There's always questions. When it comes to like Airbnb, we have a tough time auditing because they don't share details. They just send us a check. They're very private about who they get their money from. It's one area that we've been able to establish a relationship with, but it's like, we will send you a check and there's no details. It's frustrating, but at least we're generating some revenue, from the hotel motel tax to our Airbnb rentals within the county. The last performance metric is to receive and account for 100% of our delinquent real property taxes each year. And a lot of you already know that it's a 3-year process in regards to delinquent and forfeiture and foreclosure. But this is something that we've been consistent, at least over the last 3 years, in the number of delinquent properties we're getting. You can tell they're all close to about, when it comes to dollar amount, around $15-16 million. And this is the amount that we are turning over those when we receive the roll from the locals. We're turning around and paying the locals this amount, so then we become. And most of the time, we are collecting almost 100% of those real property taxes. It does take some time. It takes a lot of effort from my team to collect those taxes, but at the end, if we can't collect the taxes, the process is it goes into foreclosure, judicial foreclosure, and then we would auction the properties off moving forward, and then hopefully that makes the tax roll whole again. So talking about some significant accomplishments, this is something that a similar slide was brought up last year regarding our online, mobile, and over-the-counter credit card and ACH payment options. Just kind of giving you an update with this, which I think is a huge convenience for these parcel owners. Almost 30% of our payments are made either through credit card or ACH, either online or in the lobby there. But people are using these credit cards. It's to them it's a convenience. There's a cost to it, but that convenience. Obviously, when 30% of the payments are being made by some sort of electronic payment, it shows that people are willing to pay those fees. Now, if it's just an e-check, there's no fee for an e-check. And that bottom part, a lot more of our departments are switching over to the system that we started with in January 2021. It's called Payit, but you can see the different departments that are on track using that Payit system, and that they are PCI compliant. This is a newer significant accomplishment. This is something that I talked about last year, but it wasn't up and running. The Michigan Homeowners Assistance Grant Fund Program. This is pretty significant because this is a grant program that was developed by the state of Michigan through some of the American Rescue Plan dollars, and it was $325 million that is being used to help out those who are affected by the pandemic financially. Whether you were sick or your business was interrupted and you couldn't make payments, there's a broad use of how you can use these funds. But the one that's important to the county and important to our office, it was helping people or preventing foreclosures from happening that experienced the financial hardships. So what this, some of the numbers on this at the bottom, you can see that we have received over $300,000 in payments from the state of Michigan for the property taxes of 19, 20, and 21, as well as some money for the 2022 summer taxes as well. This was a system that was supposed to be up and running in January 2021, but they didn't get going until probably about June of 22. So we had already foreclosed or put people in forfeiture on April 1st. And so these people it was a crisis for these people. And working with the state of Michigan and MISTA, we were able to help out these people. Not all of them were approved. We have probably about 20% of the 180 were denied that didn't meet the requirements, and we still have about 50 to 70 that are still in the queue to get approved. So this is going to be huge for a lot of those property owners. I think the last significant accomplishment, and this is something that, we get teased a lot and mocked a lot because we all like to bring up that we have the AAA bond rating, but it's so important because having this rating, and it's just not my office, we're part of this with the team of Kent County and the finance department and the administration, but we can borrow these dollars, and it's a huge savings to our taxpayers. I don't think people realize that the hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, and then over a lifetime of a bond, millions of dollars that are saved. It's just, I think it's a huge accomplishment, and we should all pat ourselves on the back because it means that we are committed to the efficiency and the effectiveness of running this county. So it always is. It's been 24 years now, and hopefully there'll be a 25 and a 30 and a 35 and a 45 and so on. So looking ahead, this is something that, again, I gave you a glimpse of this because we hadn't gone through the full process, but this is a new law in regards to foreclosure, the 78T. It's the remaining proceeds from after a auction of property that is foreclosed. So since this new law, we've gone through the process for the 2018 foreclosure, and we stumbled through parts of it. Our legal team, thank you to our legal team for helping me through this because it's not only just the treasurer, but we have to involve the judicial process in this new. So if you look at the top part, the 2021 foreclosure cycles, we had 28 properties that we foreclosed on April 1st in 2021. And the minimum bid, which is all the back taxes, fees, penalties, and interest, was about $225,000. So that was what we had to make to be able to be whole when it comes to those 28 properties. They're not all homes. Some of them were vacant land. Some were just slices. Some of them were junk pieces of property. Well, out of that, only 5 people filed claims and completed the claims process. So you not only file a claim, but then you have to file with the not only with my office, but then there's a portion where you have to file the claim with the court system as well. And we lost some people on that one. They didn't do that. But if you can see that the payments that we needed to make after the judgment by the court system, we had to write checks for $222,074. So people were able to claim that out of those 5 claims. There is a 5% process fee that goes to the county to help us with this judicial process. It's kind of to help cover our costs, and that's what that bottom 5% process fee of about $40,000 is. Decimal point missing there. So the 22 cycle, we haven't gone through it completely, but again, there's 28 foreclosures. You see the minimum bid. You see how much was received in the auction. We have almost double the amount of claims. So there's 11 claims. The possibility of a judge paying out those claims is going to be about $360,000, and you can see the 5 on those claims. We won't know probably until later next summer. Another look ahead is this past fall, I helped establish a new collaboration. I organized a meeting with Joel, the Executive Director of Home Repairs, and Evelyn Esparza Gonzalez, who's the Executive Director of the Hispanic Center of Western Michigan, to develop a relationship on the foreclosure prevention process. There's some unfilled needs there. One organization does a really good job with counseling and education and prevention. The other organization, Hispanic Center, has some people who, struggle in this area, and the Hispanic Center focuses more on rental. They don't know much about home ownership, and so getting these two organizations, these two 501c3 organizations together to meet these unmet needs is very critical. And we're still at the beginning stages, so I'll be able to report back, but I'm excited about building this relationship with those two organizations and continuing to help to make sure we prevent these people. A lot of these foreclosures can be prevented and save people a lot of money moving forward. Some key collaborations. We continue to work with our local pool, or our local governments pooling with us. I think we pool with 13 townships, 4 cities, and 6 local authorities. And it's about $75 million in that pool. We have a great relationship with all 35 of our local units that collect taxes, constant communication with my team and the treasurers over in each one of those local municipalities. We work a lot with Next Steps of West Michigan. If you don't know much about them, their office helps us with our field maintenance and our cleanup and our services preparing these homes when they go into the auction cycle. We work well with Legal Aid of Michigan. There's a lot of people who, I can't give a whole lot of, I'm not an attorney and I can't give them a whole lot of legal advice, but they need it. And we try and point them towards Legal Aid of Michigan. Been working a lot with MISTA with that MyHap program, which is a great relationship and good communication there. And then lastly is I've been part of getting more involved with some state associations, and the two that I'm involved with most is the Michigan Association of County Treasurers and then MGFOA, and both those groups have charged me, or asked me, I should say, to be their legislative chairs moving forward. So I have that to look forward to over this next year, to chairing those legislative committees moving forward. So with that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you, Madam
All right.
Chair.
Thank you so much for that great presentation. It's, often when we think of the treasurer's office, we're not thinking, we're thinking property taxes and collections and things. We're not necessarily thinking of the compassionate side of things. So, I appreciate your work with the nonprofits and helping our residents, find the best way possible to live in our community. And I think that's, an overall improvement. And I love hearing about those relationships. So
I'm charged with collecting taxes. It doesn't say thou shall foreclose. And if I
Right.
can do anything I can to prevent foreclosure, I'm going to do that.
yeah, but that's something that makes our county, a better place with that extra dose of compassion in there. So thank you. Are there questions for Mr. McGregor? Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Breeby. Thanks for being here, Treasurer McGregor. So when we audit a hotel, are there any strategies in place that maybe the hotel is just not even collecting the tax, let alone the room rent, and is sheltering the money for other purposes?
Yeah, I mean, when we audit, we're auditing 20% of those hotels a year. We have one person, and she is tasked to do these audits. And if things don't look like they're on the up and up, and it's usually the smaller ones, areas, or the newer ones that just don't understand how the system works, that's when, the management team is brought in, and, usually it's writing a letter to them and saying, hey, thou shalt. So we keep it on the books. There's always gonna be an accounts payable to that hotel or motel or facility on there. So, yeah, there's a few on that list that owe the county some money, and it's my job to follow up and make sure that gets paid.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Kallman.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the detailed work, to keep Kent County taxpayer money safe in these investments. And the move to try to get a little more return than CDs have in the past, I think makes a whole lot of sense if we're looking at, real dollar terms and 8% inflation,
We're
even
losing money,
5% is
right.
it's still going backwards in a sense. But certainly it's a good thing we're not, putting our money in investments like, FTX, or similar. But what are these? So these Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, are these mortgage-backed securities?
Government securities. The majority of them are going to be all secured by the federal government. So, boy, if the federal government goes under, we're all in trouble. So it's probably the most secure investment outside of a legitimate bank, solid running bank that you can get. So we just can't, it's like a battleship. You just can't turn it, real quickly, even though the rates are, between 4% and 5% right now, and some of them getting closer to 5%, because we got to make sure that things are laddered out, if that makes sense. So not everything's coming in at once, and we kind of, we're a cash-based, cash needs type of organization. So when the cash is needed by the board, we got to be ready with that. So we can't just say, oh boy, I can get 5 or 6% if I go out 5 years. We got to be careful with that. So a lot of times, Steve in our office, he's making decisions on cash flow needs. And if we're going to need, like last month, we needed $80 million to send to the state of Michigan. Well, if we're not laddered out appropriately and that money isn't coming back to us, we got to be very, very careful. So a lot of times we can't go out much more than a year, possibly 3, but mostly it's usually a year. Sometimes it's 6 months, sometimes it's 3 months, because we got to be prepared. You all are going to be spending some money here in the next few months when it comes to the ARPA dollars. We got to be prepared for that. So we keep up with the finance department and the accounting department and make sure that, okay, what is needed here in the next few months. So that's what limits us on our investments. It's a balance, and I wish I could tell you exactly how it's done. It's a little bit of an art, but you also have to look at, again, it's liquidity first, or safety first, and then liquidity. So you got to be able to make sure it's safe, but then you also have to make sure you can get it out when you need it. And so that yield is always the distance there. I wish, we could get 8 or 10 or 12%, but I guess it's always better to be safe with other people's money. If we want 8, 10, 20%, then we got to use our own money to do that.
A quick follow-up, if I might. So I understand the kind of timing needs for these investments with various cash flow needs of the county. Is there a point or threshold where, like, housing market conditions would cause reevaluation of the mix and to pull out of some of those housing industry?
I don't know if we're a little bit more conservative than that when it comes. Most of these new investments are going to be T-bills, securities, T-bonds, things like that. I don't even know if PA 20 allows us to get into that. I'm going to let Steve Orchard.
We own many mortgage-backed bonds. They're very
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner McLeod?
You, Chair. Thank you for this report. I was really impressed with the mitigation efforts that you and your team are doing to help people not lose their homes for lack of resources to pay their taxes. So definitely kudos for that work and for the partnerships that you're doing, that you've developed with the nonprofits to help in that efforts. I just wondered about the Michigan Homeowners Assistance Fund, and just wondering how that's been promoted and marketed to the people that might be needing those resources. And then, because looking at the number of foreclosures that have happened over the last 2 years, the 28, and then the 28 for 2022 that are still in process, that's a really low number for Kent County, so that means that something's working. But then to have 180 applicants for this program, I just wondered if there seems to be a little disconnect.
Yeah.
Maybe there's people that aren't applying that should, just wondering how that information might get
You
to
don't
those
have-
people.
So my office can give hardship deferrals. So if you're going into foreclosure and an individual comes in and sits down with me and explains the situation, and it makes sense and they can develop a plan to get out of this hole, I help them with that. These organizations help them with that, coming up with a plan. We extend that cycle another year. But there are also people that are in forfeiture, they're in delinquency. So out of the 180, not all of them are at a crisis mode, they're just in a delinquency mode. And there's some people on that list that we've gotten paid that have never stepped a foot into our office at that point. Are there a whole lot more people that could use this? Yeah, and we're trying to promote it in every communication we have. Every time we send out a quarterly statement to everybody who owes a dime to the county or a penny. Everybody gets a statement that is delinquent. And on that statement, there's slips in there that talk about this program, specific about this program. And it's a different color, and it's developing it where it's English on one side and Spanish on the other side. We are trying to get that word out. The nonprofits know about it. The nonprofits will help these people fill out the application. The application's online, so people struggle at that. You can also do it on phone, but that's also, there's some miscommunication on that, and the follow-up is really difficult if you do it on phone-based. So having these 501c3s help these people out, these nonprofits help, it's so key. So we try and direct these people to there. You can lead a horse, and it's tough to get these people sometimes because they're afraid. They have a lot of fear on trusting someone else in this situation. So I try and help remove that fear, but by teaming up with organizations like the Hispanic Center, I think they're the ones that would help give me more credibility with those citizens that are struggling. And I provide them with the information and materials that they can communicate out to the segment of Kent County that I'm seeing. These are people that need help and can be helped, and we can prevent them from going into foreclosure. So it's just a lot of communication. Could there be more? There's always could be more, and the board's help in any way to communicate that this money, and the program's still going on. I mean, it's just not a one-year deal. It's people can apply up to $25,000 for not just back taxes, it's all sorts of issues that you may have that has caused you hardship through the pandemic, financial hardship through the pandemic. So, but it's intimidating, and that's probably the problem too. Thank you.
All right, any other questions for our treasurer? All right, seeing none. Thanks so much for your time today.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
Always interesting report. I appreciate it. Okay, so our next item on the agenda comes from Human Resources, and it's a labor agreement with the Kent County Prosecuting Attorneys Association.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve a 5-year labor agreement for the period of January 1, 2023 through December 31, 2027 between the County of Kent, the Office of the Prosecuting Attorney, and the 34-member Kent County Assistant Prosecuting Attorney Association, and to authorize the board chair or designee to sign the agreement. The negotiating committee recommends approval of a 5-year labor agreement with the APA Association. Wages will increase each year as follows: 4% in 2023, with an additional 4% market adjustment that will apply to the APA 1 wage scale, 3% in 2024, with an adjustment tied to the MPP across-the-board increase if greater, 2% in 2025 with an adjustment tied to the MPP across-the-board increase if greater, 2026 and 2027, contract reopener limited only to annual percentage wage rate adjustment, with any adjustment tied to the MPP across-the-board increase if agreement is not reached. Add Juneteenth as a recognized holiday. For employees hired on or after July 1, 2016, increase the annual paid time off credit from 40 to 80 hours, and vacation will be reduced from 96 to 80 hours during the first 3 years of employment. Eligibility for vacation buyback will change from 14 to 10 years of service. In 2024, a high-deductible health plan with a health savings account will be offered. Employees will pay 15% of the premium for this plan option. The copay for specialty medications under all plan options will be $100. Sickness and accident insurance and long-term disability coverage will become effective the first of the month following date of hire. The increase to salary, excluding 2026 and 2027, and benefit cost over the term of the agreement is $1,054,678.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner Skaggs, is there support? Support by Commissioner Hennessy. Any questions or comments regarding this? Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Breeby. Al, how many members or employees do we have in this group?
34.
All right, Commissioner Burrow.
Yes, thank you, Chair Breeby. Al, and talking to Amy a little bit before our meeting, I was, it seems in all of our contracts, we have, I know in the court's a little different, we're adding Juneteenth as a holiday. I think we have several holidays that, have we ever looked at floating holidays with certain one of these? Again, I know the courts, I think federally they'll have to be closed and things aren't going to be going on, but what can we do, or what can we look at to give our employees options with their time?
I'll start and then Amy can finish. But I think it was when I was here the first time, we actually went to 5 floating holidays. And there were holidays that we then didn't recognize. And so we did keep the county open 5 more days, and employees had choice with how they use those. But there are counties that are going the other way now, and Kent County did do that. Amy can probably pick it up for there, but I know she's been working a lot on our leave time and other things, so.
Thanks, Al. Yeah, a lot of what you're going to see in terms of the outcome of negotiations and also some of the other initiatives we're working on is promoting flexibility for employees. It's more important to many employees than ever. And Commissioner Burrow, I mean, you and I were talking about, for a lot of people, it's even more important than pay in some circumstances, just based on what they value. So I think there is a benefit to offering that flexibility to folks. That being said, there are some just practical limitations. For instance, as you mentioned with the courts, Juneteenth is mandated by SCAO to be a holiday. DPW is going to be open if the haulers are there. The sheriff's office, they're 24/7, 365. So, I mean, for the majority of our employees, there are kind of other factors that are going to dictate how a holiday works. But to the extent that we can offer that flexibility to folks, I think it's something we should look into doing.
Yes, follow-up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So here's, I mean, again, this is just the follow-up. When we have like 3 or 4 of these that we're talking about now.
3 now and the rest next year.
Okay, so as we close things, as we close, say, the county building because the employees have a particular day off, it's hard to reopen that again. And it's hard to communicate that with folks within the community that rely on our services. So again, my fear is that we give these holidays off. Again, I'd love to look at a block. Look at a block. Look. Talk to our employees and what holidays they. Again, like we talked about, time is so important for folks. So I'd love to see us look at some of these. I mean, Veterans Day for last week, for example. Again, I definitely value it. My son's in the military, but with our conversation, about 10% of our employees are veterans, and can we give our employees options and flexibility? So again, I just think it's important that we look at it, and unfortunately, probably sooner rather than later. But this is this is out there and we got to deal with it, but it's something that I think would be important to take a peek at.
Great, thank you. Any other comments on this action request? Commissioner Skaggs?
Sorry about that, Commissioner Hennessy. I seem to have snuck in. Amy, thank you so much for doing all this hard work. I know we have a lot of bargaining units, and I just really appreciate that you were able to come to an agreement with them and bring this before us. Two quick questions. I usually bring my computer up here so that I can look up acronyms because there are things that I don't understand, even on my way out. But when we say an adjustment tied to MPP across the board increase if greater, what does that mean?
Management pay plan. That's all of our non-union supervisory. So the management pay plan gets a different, the board decides that individually every year and not multiple years at one time. So in the event the MPP would get a higher increase in a given year than what's provided here, then this is saying that we'll true up the APA to what the MPP received from the Board of Commissioners.
That sounds nice and fair and great. Second, I appreciate, Commissioner Burrell's customer-focused approach, but I also really like that we're recognizing many of the holidays and adding Juneteenth to that. I think that's an important statement about the values of this organization and this county. So I think that it is wonderful to give everyone in this in the county and our residents a sense of the importance to the holiday and to what it celebrates. Thanks.
Commissioner Hennessy?
I appreciate that you're looking at flexibility for the employee and the value for them. I have several questions. So, where do we stand on salary studies? And is this all in the budget?
I would defer to Jeff if there are any concerns about the budget, but he's been an integral part of this process all along, so he knows exactly what we're planning and is managing things on the fiscal services side to make sure we can accommodate any increase to cost. In terms of salary studies, for all of the unions that negotiated wages this year, we did conduct salary studies for them, and you'll see here and there if they were below market. There are some market adjustments, and there was actually one where there was a job that was above market, so we made an adjustment for future hires in that job. It won't impact anybody, we just added an extra step to the bottom of the pay scale. So it was kind of a complicated situation that I won't get into unless you need me to get into the details of it. But we are hyper-focused on market, and for every contract that's coming up for negotiation, there is a wage study associated. We are just finalizing the details of a wage study that involves the UAW, TPOM, which represents our court employees, and collectively between those two unions, they represent about 800 employees, and also our nurses, in anticipation of bargaining next year. And we'll round those studies out with internal studies for our sheriff's unions as well.
Can you elaborate a little bit about how, in negotiations, how you came to this outcome of giving more paid time off as opposed to vacation time, and what that might mean? I mean, it means a few more dollars, a little bit more time, but what does it mean when you talk about the flexibility? What does this?
Paid time off, it can be used without notice if you have an emergency situation. So it's more the, gosh, something came up, I didn't plan for it, sick kid, that kind of thing, flat tire, that people can use more flexibly. So we are prioritizing that because we know that people value flexibility and they have life that happens outside of work. So it's an attempt to be more responsive to those needs.
Okay. Do we have parental time off, or time off for immediate deaths in the immediate family, or that type of thing, or is that tied into this?
We do have, we offer short-term disability, at least for moms, birth. We're considering as part of our strategy for next year, whether paternity leave or maybe enhanced maternity leave should be something that we might want to look at. We also would be interested in knowing if the unions are requesting that as well. But it is something that we're at least kind of preliminarily looking at. Enhanced benefits in those area. The other piece you asked about was bereavement. We do offer bereavement leave, but PTO and vacation sometimes can be a supplement to that if somebody has to, let's say, travel out of state and take a little bit more time than what the bereavement leave would otherwise.
All right, any further questions or comments? You have another one?
I do. I like the way in which you're going, but I do think about it in terms of how is it going to, work so that we can still work with, our residents and get the work done. And this is one that's going to be a little bit more unplanned. So is it going to be able to be easily accommodated within the departments if you have, a couple things all at once and because it's not as planful, it is more unexpected. So how do we continue to meet the needs both of our employees but of the people we serve?
Well, I think that no matter what, if people have personal emergencies, they're probably not going to be here. And, I think the biggest thing we can do is just make sure that we have cultures where people feel that they're treated with respect and they treat, their supervisor with respect in return, and they are, mindful of the impact on their team and their department. So I think culture is the biggest tool that we have to make sure that people are using the time appropriately and being mindful of the needs of their departments. So we did discuss this with all 25 departments and elected offices, and they actually supported doing it this way versus the vacation way.
Thank you. Asking questions does not mean I oppose what you're doing.
Oh, no.
I'm
Yeah.
just looking for more explanation, but I appreciate what you've explained to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to comment that I think it's great that we're adding the high deductible health plan and HSA combo to all of these. That's something, for my family with my day job, as often in my career as possible, I've been able to be on a plan like that. I do so because they're really advantageous for, both the employee and the employer, typically from cost and benefit perspective. So that's awesome. The 15% number seems competitively positive for the county, and I was just wondering, is that consistent with the other non-HSA plans? Is that the percentage that the employee would pay, 15%?
For the other plans, the employee would pay 20% of the premium, so it is actually a more advantageous premium contribution.
All right, any further questions? Thank you very much for the answering questions and explanations. Let's take a minute to vote on this here. So all those in favor, please say yes. All those all those opposed, please say no. All right, motion passes. Thank you. Next item on the agenda also comes from Human Resources. It's a labor agreement with the Circuit Court Referee Association.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve a 5-year labor agreement for the period of January 1, 2023 through December 31, 2027 between the County of Kent Circuit Court and the 8-member Circuit Court Referee Association, and to authorize the board chair or designee to sign the agreement. The negotiating committee recommends approval of a 5-year labor agreement with the Circuit Court Referee Association. Wages will increase each year as follows: 4% in 2023, 3% in 2024, with an adjustment tied to the MPP across-the-board increase if greater, 2% in 2025 with an adjustment tied to the MPP across-the-board increase if greater, 2026 and 2027, contract reopener limited only to annual percentage wage rate adjustment with any adjustment tied to the MPP across-the-board increase if agreement is not reached. Add Juneteenth as a recognized holiday. For employees hired on or after January 1, 2019, increase the annual paid time off credit from 40 to 80 hours, and vacation will be reduced from 96 to 80 hours, during the first 3 years of employment. Eligibility for vacation buyback will change from 14 to 10 years of service. In 2024, a high deductible health plan with a health savings account will be offered. Employees will pay 15% of the premium for this plan option. The copay for specialty medications under all plan options will be $100. Sickness and accident insurance and long-term disability coverage will become effective the first of the month following date of hire. The increase to salary, excluding 2026 and 2027, and benefit cost over the term of the agreement is $231,899.
Thank you, Al. Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner McLeod. Is there support? Support by Commissioner Skaggs. All right, questions or comments regarding this item? Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Breeby. So Al, I'm assuming we're going to be getting a lot of these labor agreements in. When we deal with an association or a group that's represented by a union, how is that different in the way that we approach them? I mean, someone within an association, does the group get together? Do they hire legal advisors to bargain for them? Are members mandated that if you are hired as an assistant prosecuting attorney like the previous, that you have to be part of this association, or can you opt out?
Okay, I'll start with part one, and then I'll pitch it to Amy. So if you're part of a union, part of your dues pays for representation in bargaining and arbitrations and mediations and all that type of thing. As I understand it, in Michigan, you're not required to be in the union, but you are required to pay at least a minimal amount of dues. And Amy, correct that if I somehow messed that up.
It used to be the case, but people can now opt out of union membership and paying dues entirely in Michigan. Yeah. And we have two attorney-represented groups, so the prosecuting attorneys and the attorney referees, so they represent themselves and they don't pay dues. We have a third group that our KCDSA, which is our corrections officers, and they hire an attorney to represent their interests. But all three of those take a little bit of an approach outside of the traditional approach of having like a UAW or Teamsters type organization represent.
And then so the group that isn't represented is the mid-management pay group?
Yeah, we have about 300 employees, and they include management representatives, some professional employees, and also some confidential clerical staff that are not represented by any union.
All right, any other questions on this item? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda, you'll have to flip over your page here. Also comes from Human Resources, and it's the 2023 Management Pay Plan Compensation Program.
Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve amendments to the MPP pay and benefits as detailed below, effective December 26, 2022. Approximately 295 county clerical, professional, and management positions are covered under the management pay plan structure. As authorized by the Board of Commissioners, the management pay plan administrative process provides for periodic review and adjustment of the pay structure for MPP positions. Human Resources recommends that the MPP pay structure increase by 4% in 2023 to maintain alignment with the market and to maintain internal equity within the county's union represented groups, which have negotiated 4% increases for 2023. MPP employees who meet performance expectations will receive a 4% wage increase plus any applicable step increase. The wage increases are effective with the applicable pay period that contains January 1, 2023. Add Juneteenth as a recognized holiday for employees hired on or after July 1, 2016. Increase the annual paid time off credit from 40 to 80 hours, and vacation will be reduced from 96 to 80 hours during the first 3 years of employment. Accrual of vacation for part-time employees will be based upon a 29-hour work week. Short-term and long-term disability coverage will become effective the first of the month following date of hire. Hours in the sickness and accident supplement bank will be transferred to the newly created reserve sick leave bank. The total increase to salary and benefit cost is $1,329,628.
Thank you. Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner Ponstein. Is there support? Support by Commissioner Kallman. Questions or comments? Commissioner Burrow.
So this was just a reopener for,
No, this is a non-union group, so every year this decision is made by the Board of Commissioners for this group.
All right, other questions or comments? Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. So what is the difference between the SNA supplemental bank and the new reserve sick leave bank?
The SNA Supplemental Bank is a bank that was created for new hires a few years back, and it's more restrictive. It's a once-in-a-lifetime career type bank that I think has 48 hours in it that people can use to supplement short-term disability insurance. So we're basically giving people the opportunity to save more time. For the increased amount of PTO, they can bank a lot more time and have more of a cushion. And I think we learned from COVID that people really do need to have a little bit of a kind of rainy day opportunity there if something does happen like payment.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments on this item? All right, seeing none. All those in favor, please say yes.
yes.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Item number 8 on the agenda, also from Human Resources, it's amendment to the collective bargaining agreements regarding wages and holidays.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve amended wage increases for various collective bargaining agreements and to add Juneteenth as a holiday in 2023. The county and the unions listed below have tentatively agreed to an amended wage increase of 4% in 2023, which will replace the originally agreed upon 2.5% wage increase. UAW Local 2600, which represents approximately 418 employees at several county departments. TPOAM represents approximately 374 employees at the 17th Judicial Circuit Court, Probate Court, 63rd District Court, and the County Clerk's Office Courts Division. KCDSA represents approximately 244 corrections officers, corrections sergeants, crime scene specialists, and the crime scene unit team lead. Teamsters Local 214 represents approximately 62 public health nurses. The POLC represents approximately 27 captains and lieutenants. The FOPLC represents approximately 257 patrol officers, police sergeants, emergency communications officers, and emergency communications supervisors. Juneteenth is also tentatively agreed to be added as a recognized holiday in the agreements listed above. The total increase to salary and benefit costs is $4,092,902.
Thank you, Al. Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner Skaggs, support? Is there support? Support by Commissioner McLeod. All right, questions or comments regarding this? Commissioner McLeod.
Numbers are just a little large, so I just would like to just get some clarification, either from Al or maybe Jeff.
The funds are included in the budget for 2023.
Okay. Well, I mean, over the 5-year period, it looks like we're talking about roughly, is it about 7 million between all of these different things? And I'm just concerned, I guess, that we are, going to be able to have the funds available and be able to do all the other things that we need to do with these type of increases. I definitely support all of the changes that are here. I'm not questioning that. I'm just trying to understand kind of the impact.
You start, Amy, and I'll finish up this time.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of the I guess I'll call it sticker shock, has to do with the fact that we are looking at wages, which compound. So if we offer a 4% increase, that continues on, and then above and beyond that, the 3% for the next year continues on. So the compounding effect of wages represents almost the entirety of the cost of the increased costs associated with negotiating these contracts. And I think it's just the nature of how that calculation occurs, that wage increases compound. And we might be a little conservative in how we represent that, but it is the difference of offering like no wage increase at all versus what we're offering over the 5-year period of what we know anyway.
And I think that as long as we're convinced we can't afford it, which we are, I think the other factor is maybe 20 years ago, the approach would have been to say, you know what, we have an agreement, darn it, and we're not going to go back and increase wages just because somebody else got more. However, we're also have an eye on internal equity and the same challenges face employees throughout the county. And so a whipsawing can happen if then next year somebody comes back and says, negotiates, saying, well, last year they got 4%, we only got 2.5%, so we need that on top of what we're bargaining for this year. And so I think it not only is more equitable to all employees, but it actually makes bargaining make more sense in future years.
Commissioner Burrow.
Chair Breby, when is this, most of these, I mean, this is a reopener on this, we did this. Did we extend a year on the contract? Did we negotiate any of that with offering the extra 1.5% and another holiday?
Nope, these contracts are set to expire next year, and, there are a lot of things like the high deductible health plan and, the HSA that we would like to incorporate, so we're fully preparing to negotiate most of the larger agreements that are still outstanding in their entirety next year.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. All right, our item number 9 is also from Human Resources, a labor agreement with Teamster State, County, and Municipal Workers, Local 214, Parks Department.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve a 5-year labor agreement for the period of January 1, 2023 through December 31, 2027 between the County of Kent and the 17-member Parks Department, Teamster State, County, and Municipal Workers Local 214, and to authorize the board chair or designee to sign the agreement. The negotiating committee recommends approval of a 5-year labor agreement with the Teamsters Union. Wages will change as follows. 2023, 4% increase. An additional step was also added to the top of the assistant manager wage scale to reflect an upward market adjustment, and to the bottom of the wage scales for the equipment specialist and maintenance specialist positions to reflect a downward market adjustment. 2024, 3% increase with an adjustment tied to the MPP across the board increase if greater. 2025, 2% increase with an adjustment tied to the MPP across the board increase if greater. 2026 and 2027, contract reopener limited to annual percentage wage rate adjustment with any adjustment tied to the MPP across the board increase if agreement is not reached. Additional market adjustments of 4% 2023, 3% 2024, and 2% 2025 will be applied for the park manager. Add Juneteenth as a recognized holiday. For employees hired on or after January 1, 2019, increase the annual paid time off credit from 40 to 80 hours, and vacation will be reduced from 96 to 80 hours during the first 3 years of employment. Vacation buyback will be offered instead of PTO buyback. In 2024, a high deductible health plan with a health savings account will be offered. Employees will pay 15% of the premium for this plan option. The copay for specialty medications under all plan options will be $100. Sickness and accident insurance and long-term disability coverage will become effective the first of the month following date of hire. The increase to salary, excluding 2026 and 27, and benefit costs over the term of the agreement is $495,093.
All right, thanks, Sal. Is there a motion for this item? Commissioner Skaggs, moved by Commissioner Skaggs. Is there support? Support by Commissioner Teal. All right, questions or comments? I think we might have some napping going on. No, any questions or comments? Commissioner Hennessy.
believe this is the area that you addressed earlier in terms of the salary adjustments. And given that it's parks, and I keep seeing parks positions being advertised, I mean, explain to me, some of the ups and downs in this, just an explanation.
Sure. Yeah, the Parks Union is small. I mean, I think they have fewer than 20 employees. However, probably the wage piece of it is the more complex wage piece of all of the action requests you've seen. We have 4 different jobs in the Parks Union. 2 are kind of maintenance oriented, and those jobs were pretty significantly above market. However, the wage range for the assistant park manager in the maintenance job was actually more compressed than for, let's say, UAW or TPOAM, where they didn't have as many steps in their scale. So what we did was we added another step below what the higher rate would be to reflect what the market would show as being an appropriate higher rate for those jobs. So it doesn't impact people in the job now, but new hires would start out at a step that is more conducive to the market rate for that job at the beginning of the scale. And it would kind of match up with the UAW and TPOAM and other unions that have a 6-step scale. We did the same thing for the assistant park manager, only on the top end, because we were a little low with that.
All right, questions on this item? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Thank you for all your time today, Amy. Did you have something else you wanted to add?
If it's okay, I did want to take a minute just to thank all of the people who participated in this process. I'm a small part of it. There was a team of people, many of whom took new roles for the first time, and they were amazing. So thank you to Darius Quinn and Stephanie Hernandez, who are 2 of our HR managers who did a lot of the kind of spokesperson role in this negotiation, and also to Hillary Arthur, who provided phenomenal legal support for us, and to Jeff Dode, who made sure that we could finagle the finances to be able to afford all of this, and kind of helped with long-term planning associated with this negotiation. So thanks to all of them.
Yeah, thank you. And this is important because it's so hard to find good employees now. So it's important to have something that looks desirable and, to bring people into our community to work. So thank you. All right, next item on the agenda comes from the Sheriff's Office. It's a request to provide additional school resource officer for Kent City Community Schools.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to enter into an agreement with the Kent City Community Schools to provide school resource officer, SRO, services, to add 1 new county patrol officer CPO position, to appropriate $104,206, which is 75% of the annual cost of $138,941 for the 9-month budget, to the Sheriff's 2023 Special Project Fund budget, and to authorize the board chair or designee to sign the agreements. The Sheriff's Office would like to contract with Kent City Community Schools to add a CPO position to provide the school with a second SRO. The SRO program is a collaborative effort between the schools, community, students, and law enforcement. This program creates a safe school environment by having a certified police officer assigned to a specific school district. The goal of the SRO program is to provide proactive law enforcement by working with educators, students, and parents in an effort to reduce crime, drug abuse, violence in and around the school buildings and the school district. The cost for the officer is $138,941 annually, which includes $123,237 in wages and benefits and $15,704 in vehicle, equipment, and operating costs. The $15,704 includes the annualized vehicle costs and assumes the purchase of a new vehicle and equipment once every 5 years. Pursuant to the agreement, the school district will pay 100% of the wage and benefit costs. The school district will also pay $350 per month, or $4,200 per year, toward the cost of the vehicle used by the officer. All other expenses, which include remaining vehicle, equipment, and operating costs, will be provided via the cost allocation plan and absorbed by the county's general fund. The applicable contract has been reviewed and approved as to form by Assistant Corporation Counsel. If funding is limited or decreased, the position and/or vehicle addition will be eliminated unless continuation funding is approved pursuant to fiscal policy on grants, contracts, and donations.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion for this item?
Some support.
Moved and supported? All right, questions or comments? Commissioner McLeod?
Just a quick question. So is this, I'm assuming that we'll get a position request for this as well. Is this a new position, or is someone that is currently serving going to move into this role and just have their funding, supported by
morning.
this? Good morning.
So there is actually a interview process that the school will participate in. And they do select from qualified members of our current staff, and then we will backfill with a new hire of a law enforcement officer.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Hennessy, did you have a question?
Round out what it is that's being provided, who's getting, where the second officers will be provided to schools in the coming year? How did this end up? I don't remember.
We've had a long-standing school resource program. It's a voluntary program that each of the school districts can participate with us. The initial officer in that program for each of the school districts within our primary patrol area, meaning it would be my obligation to respond to a call for service there. We had a partnership where the county paid 25%, those school districts paid 75%. So that's the foundational program. But for each of the school districts who have opted to add a second officer, that's fully borne by those school districts in terms of salary and cost of the employee. So this is the second officer for Kent City. And obviously you see that there's a second one for Rockford. We've heard from many of the school districts who are considering additional school resource officers into the next year. This has a lot to do with some of the school funding changes that have happened at the state level, and obviously a need to ensure that school safety is provided each of these districts. And each of them have kind of a different reason for wanting additional support. Kent City and specifically, they're a remote school district, and the amount of time it takes to have a response to that school district is something that has been considered as part of this request. That's partially why Rockford's interested, but Rockford's just a very large school district. And it just takes a lot of people to cover the needs that, are drawn from a very large school district. I'm sorry for combining them. I just thought it would be easier to answer them both at the same time. Does that answer your question?
So, I mean,
Okay.
and it looks as if this is all coming out of your existing general fund budget, so
Well,
it doesn't.
so normally what we do is we get money from the school district to pay for the officers. So there's an account a budget that we have that is a pooled resource. So they pay a portion of that pooled resource at the school district depending on what percentage they're supposed to pay based on the service they're receiving. So it doesn't come out of my existing. It's new money to our budget.
Okay, but it's already accounted for in the budget.
Yes, so far, yeah.
That's what I was asking.
Actually, let me correct that. It's not already accounted for. If this is approved, there'll also be a request at the next finance committee. We'll be asking for an amendment to support this new program. These new officers for these schools.
How many schools total are going to have two officers for 2023? I mean,
So
we've had a
this would
lot of
be-
different activity on this.
Yeah, I'm trying to calculate back in my brain. You guys know?
I think it's Byron, Rockford, Kent City, Forest already has multiple.
Who was that last one?
The number is 4.
Forest Hills, yeah. And again, I don't think this will be the last conversation we have about this, based on some of the school districts who are approaching us. This is obviously top of their list of concerns with students on their campuses.
Any other questions for the sheriff at all on this item? All right, seeing none. All those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. We have another request from the Sheriff's Office to provide additional school resource officer for the Rockford Public Schools.
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to enter into an agreement with the Rockford Public Schools to provide school resource officer, SRO, services to add one new county patrol officer, CPO, position to appropriate $104,206, which represents 75% of annual costs of $138,941 for the 9-month budget, to the Sheriff's 2023 Special Project Fund budget, and to authorize the board chair or designee to sign the agreements. The Sheriff's Office would like to contract with Rockford Public Schools to add a CPO position to provide the school with a second SRO. The SRO program is a collaborative effort between the schools, community, students, and law enforcement. This program creates a safe school environment by having a certified police officer assigned to a specific school district. The goal of the SRO program is to provide proactive law enforcement by working with educators, students, and parents in an effort to reduce crime, drug abuse, and violence in and around the school buildings and the school district. The cost for the officer is $138,941 annually, which includes $123,237 in wages and benefits and $15,704 in vehicle equipment and operating costs. The $15,704 includes the annualized vehicle costs and assumes the purchase of a new vehicle and equipment once every 5 years. Pursuant to the agreement, the school district will pay 100% of the wage and benefit costs. The school district will also pay $350 per month, or $4,200 per year, toward the cost of the vehicle used by the officer. All other expenses, remaining vehicle, equipment, and operating costs, will be provided via the cost allocation plan and absorbed by the county's general fund. The applicable contract has been reviewed and approved as to form by Assistant Corporate Counsel. If funding is eliminated or decreased, the position and/or vehicle addition will be eliminated unless continuation funding is approved pursuant to fiscal policy on grants, contracts, and donations.
Thanks, Al. Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner Teal. Is there support? Support. Support by Commissioner Burrow. All right, questions or comments? This item looks like it mirrors the previous one. Anything else? All right. All those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. That brings us to the end of our agenda. Is there any Commissioner miscellaneous? Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Brady. It's not any real miscellaneous, but a question for Al. So in this agenda, we had a lot of talk about new holiday, paid holidays, floating holidays. Is there a conversation that's starting that, you know, when is this all going to end? And more importantly, we've got, I mean, we recognize so many different things out throughout the year. I mean, you could go on your Facebook page, and I think the other day there was 5 things being recognized on this day. I guess my concern is, when does it become more important than the rest that you get paid for that day off instead of just a day that's just recognized where people can appreciate that day?
That's a good question, and I think in particular with Juneteenth, the scale, the state court administrative offices and the Supreme Court did mandate that Juneteenth be a day off for the courts. And so really, there is a practical side to this where we want all county employees to have the same holiday. And any collective bargaining agreement is a sum of a lot of different moving parts, but I do know that comparatively, Kent County's holiday schedule is about 2 less than our comps. So I don't think we're getting way ahead of the game as far as numbers of holidays that we have by any means. So I think that, sometimes it's a federal holiday, sometimes it's mandated, sometimes it's not, and sometimes it's a choice of the board. As I mentioned, in the past, we went to a different system and then came back out of that. So I think there is a fair amount of choice for the Board of Commissioners overall with several of the holidays. But I think one of the things we keep our eyes on is comparatively, would Kent County be getting out of line with our comparable counties? And we're definitely not in this case, so.
All right, thank you. Is there any other Commissioner miscellaneous? All right, seeing none, I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday, and our next meeting will be on December 13, 2022 at 8:30 a.m. Have a wonderful day.